In 1878, Thomas P. Turpen decided to travel out west. Turpen lived in Greenville, Ohio, and was the owner and operator of the Turpen House, a 4-story brick hotel he opened in Greenville in 1871. On October 10, 1878, Thomas Turpen left Greenville and traveled to Chicago. From there he traveled on the Burlington and Quincy Railroad to Iowa, and then to Atchison, Kansas on the Kansas City, St. Joseph, and Council Bluffs Railroad. He then boarded a train on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad to Colorado. Turpen shared his experiences by writing letters to the local newspaper back home, the Greenville Democrat, and so we know some of his opinions on this journey. On the way to Colorado, Turpen passed through Dodge City, which he described as the greatest cattle shipping point in all the West. On October the 23rd, Turpen left Colorado Springs at 11:30 a.m. on the stagecoach for Leadville. At midnight, the stage stopped at Pulver Station, where the passengers went to bed. They awoke early the next morning, and at 6 a.m., the stagecoach was on the road. Finally, the stage arrived at Leadville at 8:30 p.m. Turpen was sure to write down his experience on the stagecoach and sent it to Greenville. When Thomas Turpen stepped foot in Leadville in October of 1878, the camp was starting to become the great silver town it is known as. 1878 was the year the town was incorporated and given the name Leadville, after the plentiful lead ore in the area. At the beginning of 1878, there had only been a few hundred people living there. By the close of 1879, there would be 30,000 people in Leadville. Turpen's visit came during a time of great excitement, of building houses and businesses, of promising new mines and mineral discoveries. Turpen was very much interested in this new booming silver town and wrote a nice long letter about it that would be published in the Greenville Democrat on November 27, 1878. Communicated. Mr. Editor, in my last communication, I had arrived at Leadville. I will now give you a short sketch of the place. It is 137 miles from Denver, 105 from Colorado Springs, and 150 from Pueblo. It lays on the western slope of the Rocky Mountains, altitude 10,525 feet above the sea. There are 3 roads by which you can reach the place. We'll have to stage it from 80 to 120 miles on any route you take. Leadville has fine smelting establishments, which run day and night. 3 sampling mills, which run all the time. They sample the ore, then the sample is assayed and sold by that sample. 3 banks, 20 houses called hotels, and a number of good restaurants, where you can get a good meal at a reasonable price. The grocery, dry good, drug, clothing, hardware, boot and shoe trade is well represented. Fine rooms and well filled with goods. The meat market is goose, beef, pork, venison, antelope, bear, elk, turkey, chickens, etc., etc. 2 newspapers of very respectable size. One is issued on Thursdays and the other on Saturdays. There are 2 news depots where you can have a selection from hundreds of magazines and newspapers, which are published in all the cities in the United States. 6 sawmills in the vicinity, which run day and night, and the lumber is taken away as fast as it comes from the saw. 1 brewery is being built. A company has been organized and a contract made with the authorities of Leadville to furnish water until the 24th of October, 1898, for fire and domestic use. It is to flow into a reservoir 150 feet above the junction of Harrison Avenue and Chestnut Streets. The company agrees to throw a 1 1/4 inch stream 50 feet high. 2 brass bands, 2 churches, 1 Methodist and 1 Catholic, a fine schoolhouse. The livery business is good. 1 town hall, 2 theaters. The saloon business is large. I think that 75 is a reasonable estimate. The dance houses are carried on in a way that make it very expensive to the participants. The gambling houses are very extensive. You can take a stroll any evening and see hundreds bucking against the Tiger, Grand Hazard, Red and Black, Poker, Keno, and many other different games I took no note of, as I had no thought of giving you a sketch of Leadville until I arrived at home, and being asked by so many, where were you, and how I like the West, etc. Leadville is one of the greatest mining camps in Colorado. Its mineral resources are immense, easily developed. The spirit of the population is good and happy. Everybody who wants work gets it, and good pay. The work consists in mining, smelting, teaming, handling ores, chopping timber, and burning charcoal. Blacksmiths command good wages. Carpenters' wages is but little higher than common laborer. Anyone that can build a log cabin is considered a carpenter. The greater part of the dwelling houses are log cabins. The business houses are frame with a few brick rooms, well finished and make a good appearance, but all built out of green lumber. I think it has been 40 years since I saw a log hotel until I saw them in Leadville. I will give you the names of a few mines that are in working order. The Eureka, Jetty, Bluebell, Mary Ellen, Keystone, Iron, Adelaide, Argentine, Campbird, Charleston, Crescent, Joe Bates, Shamrock, Yankee Doodle, Catalpa, the Fanny Bee, the Little Pittsburgh. Some of the ore out of these mines assaying as high as $500 to the ton. It is estimated that there are 200 paying mines in the vicinity of Leadville. Some of them pay largely. The richest yield is the Little Pittsburgh. When they have their full force at work, they can hoist 120 ton per day. It yields on an average $125 per ton. It is carbonate ore. The vein in some places is 18 feet thick, is easily worked using only a pick and shovel. The galena ores have to be blasted, which makes it slow mining. The great drawback to Leadville is the cost of transportation, which is $30 per ton from the nearest railroad point. It is estimated that there are 1,700 work animals on the road from Colorado Springs to Leadville. The other routes have their share of freight. The coke that is used by the smelting establishments costs them $40 per ton, which makes it very expensive. Consequently, there are large amounts of low-grade ores that are waiting for cheaper freights. Thousands of tons of ore will accumulate by spring, waiting transportation. They have long winters, 8 months cold and snowy weather, and it is almost impossible to cross the mountains with loaded trains. This slow and expensive freighting is very detrimental to the growth of Leadville. With all of its inconveniences and drawback, it is the largest camp of its age in America. The camp was commenced in May 1877, and in 1 year and 6 months, it has a population of 7,000. All branches of business is good. Money is plenty. Large transactions in mining, buying and selling interests in mines. A few days since, 1/2 interest in the Wolftone mine was sold for $12,000. 1/2 interest in the Little Pittsburgh brought $265,000, notwithstanding it is involved in a heavy litigation. I presume from what I have said about this new camp, you are inclined to say, I wish I was there. Let me say this to you before you make up your mind to go, that there is 19 out of every 20 that go to that country fail. They come home with less money than they started with, but more experience. Mr. E.A. Shade invited me to take dinner with him and his companions in bachelorhood, Messrs. Frank Laird, John Martincourt, and W.H. Gaskill. I accepted the invitation, and when the cooking commenced, I eyed things pretty closely in the culinary department, not being used to seeing everything done by boys. I didn't know how they would get along, but when they came to put the victuals on the table, there was not room for all the dishes. And you will not be surprised at that when I give you the bill of fare at the Shady Palace, the neat log cabin in Leadville, Sunday, October 7th, 1878. Roast beef, roast venison, mallard duck, light biscuits, sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, tomatoes stewed, squash, fruit stewed, cranberry sauce, cheese, quince butter, jelly sauce, pie apricot, pie raspberry, grapes California, pears California, apples green, coffee, concentrated milk, sugar, and all table trimmings. It was one of the finest and best cooked dinners that it has been my privilege to sit down to for a long time. When such cooks as Lon and Johnny are bossing the dinner, you need have no fear of starving. It was a day long to be remembered by me. After dinner, we all took a walk to the Little Pittsburgh mine, where we saw the operation of mining. There are 3 shafts sunk in this claim. The ore is raised by horsepower. Some of the mines are on the side of a steep, high hill. The shaft is then sunk at the highest point on the claim. And near the lower point, they drift or tunnel in the bank and reach the main or perpendicular shaft with an incline railroad, which makes it easy getting the ore out. It is not so steep, but that you can walk down to the bottom of the ore vein. The claims are 300 feet wide and 1,500 feet long. The shafts at this point are sunk from 75 to 250 feet deep. TPT. Here are some notes concerning Thomas Turpen's letter. The 2 newspapers mentioned that existed in Leadville in 1878 were the Daily Eclipse and the Daily Reveille. Both ended in 1880, and other newspapers, like the Carbonet Chronicle, which began in 1879, became popular. The brewery in Leadville refers to Henry Woolsey Gaugh's brewery in the California Gulch. Henry Gaugh's brewery actually began in 1877 and lasted until 1905. This is a lithograph of Gaugh's brewery as it looked in 1887. An ad for the brewery says that it had the finest lager beer delivered to any part of the city. When discussing the gambling in Leadville, Turpen mentioned these games: Bucking the Tiger, Grand Hazard, Red and Black, Poker, and Keno. Bucking the Tiger refers to the card game of Faro, which was quite popular in the West. Grand Hazard is a game involving dice. Red and Black, or Rouge et Noir, is a game where cards are dealt into 2 rows, one being the red row and the other the black row, and people bet on which one will have a count closer to 31. Poker was probably in reference to 5-card draw, and Keno is a lottery-type game that was the predecessor of modern-day bingo. When Turpen visited Leadville in 1878, he first traveled by railroad to Colorado Springs, and then had to go by stagecoach for the rest of the journey. However, it wouldn't be long until the railroad was built to Leadville. In 1880, the Denver and Rio Grande Railway, using narrow gauge rail, reached Leadville. This allowed President Ulysses S. Grant to visit Leadville in 1880. On July 22nd, the former president arrived by train, but the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad was not quite finished, so the train stopped a quarter of a mile west of town. Grant and his family traveled by carriage the rest of the way. Turpen mentioned that 1/2 interest in the Little Pittsburgh mine was $265,000. $265,000 in 1878 would be worth over $8.5 million today. And finally, since Turpen said most of the buildings in Leadville were log cabins, I'll leave you with this photo of some log cabins in early Leadville. This photo is of Chicken Hill, which was on the west slope of Carbonet Hill.